Hi, my name is Chubby, and today I am here with this beautiful, gorgeous Mercedes 560 SEL from the W126 version. First of all, I have to address my Hungarian viewers. So, why are you seeing this in English and not in Hungarian? Of course, I am Hungarian. I am a Hungarian, well, YouTuber, presenter-ish. And the reason for this, that the owner of this car wants this video to be posted on international groups. So we might make a Hungarian version after this one, but for now you will have to do with just the Hungarian subtitles. What does the badge 560 SEL mean? 560 is the engine displacement, or it should be, because it should mean that it is 5.6 liters. But it's not, it's a 5.5 liter V8, naturally aspirated. S stands for the S-Class. E is for the fuel-injected models, the gas fuel-injected models, because if it was a diesel, then there would be a D instead of the E, and L is the long version, long. The American version is even longer than the European long version because of the bumpers. They extrude the car by 12 centimeters front and rear. First of all, let's take a look at the interior, because it is the big selling point. It was and it still is the big selling point of this car, and I have to say this is gorgeous. For 87, the materials, the movement of the little parts, the buttons, the switches are extraordinary. Even some of today's cars don't feel this way. All the switches feel heavy. This is just a beautiful, beautiful place to be. So, of course, for this time, this car came with a lot of features. For today's, it might look plebeian, but for that time it was absolutely astonishing. Of course, this car came with air conditioning, and it still works to this day, but the buttons for the air conditioning are very, very interesting, because for one, the temperature switch or dial, I don't know how to call this, is a big wheel painted in white, blue and red, and it kinda looks like an off-road tire. But at least there are numbers on it, so you can dial it exactly as you wish. The other interesting thing with the climate control are the buttons to control the airflow, because they cancel each other out. So if you want the air to go to the windshield, you push one button, but then if you want it to go to your legs, then they pop out as you push in the other button, and it is very fascinating for me. This is like a very, very childish thing, but I love the movement of these buttons. Next comes the seats. Well, first of all, they are very well, for the very first time they are disturbing, because they feel like they made out of two pieces. One, the upper piece, which you sit on, which moves around almost freely, and then you have the hard bottom. When I first sat in this car, it felt really strange, but at the same time very, very comfortable, because it almost feels like you are floating. On the other hand, the seats are power operated. It's very, very, very nice to see that they are still working. The other very, very interesting part of the seats, for 87, again I have to address, is that they are memory seats on both sides. Another interesting quirk of this car are the mirrors, because on the driver's side they are manually operated, meaning you can just grab this stick, this joystick, or I don't know how this is called, and you can place it exactly where you want. But on the passenger side, you have in the center console a little joystick, and you can adjust it from the center, so you don't have to reach out and adjust it manually. This was done to give more comfort for the driver, because you can of course reach the driver's side mirror easily, but to reach the passenger side mirror you would have to reach around and then fiddle with it. So this is a much more comfortable solution for that. The next feature that I wanted to show you is the town and country horn mode. This is very funny for me, because you might think from afar, if you just hear the horn of this car, that there are two cars behind you. So first of all, you have the normal sound of the horn. Then in the center console you hit a switch and it changes to a completely different sound. And if I would own this car, I would mess with the cars in front of me, and you could drive absolutely insane everybody here in Hungary, at least. For me, this is very funny and childish, and I love it. On to the other features of this interior. For one, I love the color of this. This beige color is so much better than the black one. That's so dull, boring, but this, some may call this old man-ish style, but I love it. I love it. This gives so much delight to this car's interior. The dashboard is very interesting, although period correct for Mercedes of its time. It is separated into three and a half pieces. First, on the left side, in a big circle, you have your temperature, you have your econometer, and you have your oil pressure. In the middle, you can see your speed, either in miles or kilometers per hour. And on the right side, you have your tachometer, which is shared with the clock. Because if you are a German businessman, then you have to be on time every single time, and you don't have to worry about revving out your beautiful V8. Below these gauges are the warning lights, which are not integrated into the gauges, and this is why it's so interesting for me, at least, because on modern cars everything is shared in one place. Another beautiful feature of this car is that it has heated seats. Two-stage heated seats, which can be turned on or off next to the horn town and country button. Just before the armrest, you have a very interesting dial that many new cars miss. This dial is for the sound balancer. So if you want the sound to just come from the front, then you switch it there. If you want it to come from the rear, then you can dial it back, and then you have just a rear sound surrounding. But if you leave it in the middle, then it should be all perfect all around. This car, as I was saying, is an 87 version, and back then it didn't have airbags. I mean, it had one airbag, just for the driver. But as the car developed and airbags became government-mandated, then the glove box on the passenger side was replaced by an airbag. And to counteract this lack of space, Mercedes did a very, well, for my thinking, a very cheap solution. So you can see that just behind the steering wheel you have a little space to just put stuff. They carried this same system to the passenger side to accommodate for the loss of the glove box. The only warning light that is not located below the dashboard is your seatbelt control or seatbelt warning light, which is located very far from the dashboard. It is on the ceiling, just below the dome light. Another very German solution are the sunshades, because of course you have the original left and right side sunshades, which are very nice. They are working, they even have a mirror in them, but the Germans thought about something that nobody else did. That if you have the two sunshades down, then you still have a place where you can be blinded by the sun, which is the middle. And there you have a little sunshade, which is so cute and so German. For European cars, another not so common feature is the location of the parking brake and the parking brake release, because they are separated. If you want to engage your parking brake, then you do it with your foot. You just push in your fourth pedal, and then you have your parking brake engaged. If you want to disengage your parking brake, then you have to pull a lever, and there you go, then you can just roll ahead. And because this is a German car, of course you cannot miss the most important feature of all, the ashtray. Because everybody in the 80s smoked, and you have it here as well. Another interesting part of the interior in front are the stocks coming out of the steering column. Well, you can see that there are only two. One is for the cruise control, and one controls the windshield wipers. On the right you have none. And this is interesting, at least for me. And I was starting to look into it, why there isn't any stocks coming out on the right side of the steering wheel. Well, it is very simple. There is the key. So that's the spot where you put in the key to turn on the car. Another thing that I noticed is that even if this car is massive, so I mean the length of this car is way more than 5 meters, and the interior space is humongous, there aren't any real storage places apart from the glove box and the front door panels. For example, in the rear there aren't any door pockets, which is a very small criticism. I don't really care, but it's strange to have such a big car and to not have, in a German car, not have any dedicated spaces, for example, for cups. Because the only two cup holders are again in the glove box, and I wouldn't call them very stable. So we arrive in the back, and let me tell you that this is the place to be. Of course this is because it's the long version, it's an S-Class, you are driven around here. This is the main focus point, this is the main selling point of this car. And the space here is huge. I am 187 centimeters tall, and I can almost lay down. Not really, but this is very comfortable. And the materials are almost the same as in front, or the same as in front. And there are some very clever features back here as well. Starting with the doors. You can see that on the video that the rear doors are even bigger than the front ones. This was to accommodate for the long version of the car. Of course, this the non-long version, I shouldn't say small version, of course, because this is still a 5+ meter long vehicle, had smaller doors in the back, but to give more room for the passengers to climb in the bigger room back here, they gave us bigger doors. Still the doors. You have your power window buttons, of course, on both sides. Then you have heated rear seats and 2 stages of heated rear seats, just like in front, so you can be comfy and warm while traveling in the winter time. And the biggest party trick of them all is, so to say, because this is a bench seat, the power bench seat. You can recline the rear seat and have even more luxury, even more comfort to travel around than before, even if in its standard position it is very comfortable. Another feature that I should tell you about is the footrest. It gives a much more natural resting position for your legs and fit. The other cool feature that I wanted to show you is the center armrest, because this is the most German thing that I have ever seen, apart from the center sunshade. Okay, so you can see the center armrest is in a normal position, just like you would expect from any other brand. But if you put it down, then you can see the seatbelt buckles are engineered in a way, the center armrest pushes them away, and they are always presented, they are always there. And very, very interesting that this should be a 5-seater car, but of course, because this is a luxury yacht, only 2 people can sit here. Of course, you don't want some plebeian to sit in between you. Another very, very German feature is the rear shelf. You see, in the interior, you almost have no storage space. Of course, you can use this enormous space for storage just itself, but if you want to put smaller items, maybe on in the doors, you cannot do it. But where nobody else expects it, and no other car manufacturers use this almost wasted space, you have 2 storage spaces hidden. One is dedicated for the first aid kit, and the other one is just for regular storage. And another very, very nice rear bench seat feature is that they are perforated leather, just like in front. And of course, I close this rear section of the S-Class with the most important feature, which is, of course, the rear ashtray. And not just one rear ashtray, 2 rear individual ashtrays. And for each door, you even have your own individual cigar lighter. So let's take a look at the trunk of this massive car. Well, there isn't any interesting part that I should talk about. It is 510 liters, it has the original spare, that is interesting, made in Germany. Let's talk about the exterior of this beautiful S-Class. For one, it is very, very long. Of course, it's more than 5 meters. This is the extended wheelbase version. And me and the owner tried to talk about how to describe the look of this car, and the word that came to our mind is austere. I might have butchered it, I'm sorry. It means very, very business-like, very respected, very well established. And this is such a good word for this car. When it's moving, you see a very well-established businessman driving it. It looks amazing. I mean some might say this is dull, but I don't think that's true. It's nice, it's beautiful, it's classical, it's aged so well. There are some bits of the car, I mean the exterior of the car, that I want to address. One are the wheels. So these might look pretty big, but they are only 15-inch wheels and tires. And the look of them give more of a presence to this car. I mean, if it would be a 5-spoke or a 6-spoke, it wouldn't look good. This, with this kind of plate-ish look, is perfect. And the last exterior part that I love to talk about are the headlight washer and wiper systems on both sides, of course. This is such a stupid idea because it almost does nothing, yet it's so nice to look at, because I don't know, with this equipment the car has 4 windshield wipers, I mean windshield and headlight wipers. And when I was younger and I was walking around with my mom or with my dad, and I was looking at cars parked on the street, I would look at the headlights, and if it had a wiper on them, then instantly I thought, this is cool. So we get under the hood, and this is the mighty Mercedes 5.5 liters V8. The exact displacement of this engine is 5,547. The interesting parts are about it almost none. I love this huge air filter on top, and the power output is 242.5 horsepower. I believe it's 300 Newton meters. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour takes about 7.6, 7.8 seconds. That's because it is a huge car. It weighs 1.8 tons, and the top speed, as factory claimed, is 228 kilometers an hour. But journalists, when they tested it, found out that it's much faster than that. And now comes the time that I was waiting for. Let's take the W126 for a drive. First impressions of driving this huge car is actually that word that I just said. It is huge, it's humongous, it's monstrous almost, because you are sitting so high. Even if you lower the seat, you are sitting very, very high relative to other cars, and you see this almost runway-like hood in front of you, and in front of that runway is the Mercedes Star. The driving experience is amazing. It is very relaxed. It's very business-like, so it does exactly what you want. For example, the brakes, they are amazing. I mean, the brakes on my race car feel worse than this, and it is messing with your mind. You see, I always forget that this car is from '87. It's very, very, very old. And yet it feels modern while you are driving it. Of course, the steering is a little bit heavier than on a modern Mercedes. Of course, the movement of the car is not so agile, but still the whole package feels modern. And you cannot forget the fact that you can see everything. You can see next to you, you can see behind you, you can place the car, this more than a 5-meter long boat, exactly where you want. You might not know, because this is my very first video that I do in English, but I have driven many Jaguars, even from around this era, from the early 90s, and they feel so much different. They evoke such different emotions. They are more playful, so to say, even if you are driving a Daimler. But the Mercedes is very, very business-like. It's serious. You want to do business in it. You want to be precise. You want to be precisely on time, and that's it. Yet you can feel everything. You are not disconnected from that time you spend behind the steering wheel. You feel the acceleration, you feel the braking, you feel the cornering, even if it was not made for cornering. Of course, this is a huge car with very soft suspension. This is the top of the luxury line from Mercedes in the 80s. Still, you feel everything. And if you feel the driving experience, you can feel it in the in your fingertips. I love this car, seriously. And then there is the rest. Of course, you have enormous space everywhere. You have your passenger driving in the rear seat, and everybody is relaxed, everybody is happy, everybody enjoys the tour to your favorite winery. If you are driving a modern luxury car, then you are so removed from the road that you don't feel any badness that can be present. Here you feel everything. This is the kind of sensation that I miss from modern cars. I really do. I really do. Because they don't, I don't want to say this, but they just don't evoke any emotions in you. This is elemental. I might be old school, of course, but still I am not that old. And this car doesn't feel as old as it is. It makes you appreciate classical build quality, classical feelings, because this engine, which has run 73,000 miles, feels like new. Of course, I don't I have no idea how it felt like in 87, but for me, driving it feels absolutely fine. It is majestic. So, we have a big V8 under the hood, an old school V8 which we can hear. So let's do a little acceleration. Very nice! Beautiful! It is not fast. I mean, of course it's not fast. It is very, very heavy and has only 240 horsepower, but it moves. It really pulls. And you don't feel it being tired even at the higher revs. So I mean, we just hit 6,000, which is a lot for an old school V8. And let's talk about the last part of this car, because I don't want to talk about maintenance, because it is a very old car, so everything should be repaired beforehand. But the fuel consumption is kind of interesting. So 5.5 liter V8, 240 horsepower, and it drinks around 14.5 liters, depending on how you drive it, but this is the factory data. That's not so bad. That's not so bad for such an old school big Benz. I think it's fine. Of course it's a lot in today's world when a 1000 horsepower Lamborghini drinks 1 liter of fuel in 100 kilometers, but I can make that trade-off. A little story time. So, as I was talking with the owner, who is a fine Italian man, he was telling me that when he was younger, this car, the W126, was the top of the line luxury Mercedes that you could buy, and it was his dream car. He could see his father, even if he didn't have one, but he could imagine his father driving one. This story, when you are driving someone's dream car, this makes your appreciation toward that specific car a lot higher, because you know that back in, I don't know, 40 years before today, these cars were the dream cars. Even in today's generations, some of us may feel the same way if we are looking at a car like this, if we are driving a car like this, because this is such a different world for us. And I am very sad that today's cars cannot reproduce this feeling. But I am looking forward seeing them 40 years from now, how they feel, how they work, even if they turn on at all. And that will be very interesting, because I am sure 40 years from now, if governments allow, this car will absolutely work. Well, that's it. That's the W126 Mercedes S-Class. It is a beautiful car. It's a car from another era. A car that evokes so many emotions if you are driving it, if you look at it even. And I am really saddened that there aren't any cars really that do the same. I mean, of course, if you see a Lambo or a Ferrari, even a Mercedes from today's world, they are very nice. But this for me, this is the place to be. This gives you the feeling of a car and not a feeling of a rolling business place, your workplace. Today's cars are workplaces. This is a car, and I love it. Thank you very much for watching this video. This was the very first time that I spoke in English. I mean, not the first time that I spoke in English, but the first time that I made a video talking in English. So it might be rough, I'm sorry for that. I try my best. Maybe in the future I can evolve. But thank you very much again. If you like this video, give it a like. If you don't subscribe, I can see that, because of course this is a Hungarian channel, and if you are watching it from another part of the world, then you might not understand my videos. But if you are Hungarian and you liked it, then subscribe please. So yes, thank you very much. See you in the future, a future review, a future video. You can watch my races, of course. And see ya!